Ricky Harriott is a creative director and designer with 10 plus years experience in garment design, brand building, and creative leadership. Most recently, Ricky has led London-based brand service from launch to critical and commercial success, showing at London Fashion Week and securing placement in Essence, Selfridges, and H. Lorenzo.
So please welcome Ricky.
Hello. Oh. Hi everyone.
Okay, so this is going to be a kind of conversation. I have a set of questions, but also if anyone has any questions, please just feel free to jump in. So I guess as a good starting question, I was wondering if you could maybe just tell us a little bit about your kind of background and sort of how you, how the kind of journey
How
unfolded.
I came to exist.
Yeah.
Okay. So I'm from Tottenham in North London. That's where I grew up. That's where I somehow found myself back. And I guess in terms of my career trajectory, as a kid, I was obsessed with video games, anime, comic books, and I was consistently drawing. I kind of got my start drawing like Dragon Ball Z characters. That was like my first thing. And then that evolved into me starting to try to redesign their costumes. Same with video games, always the girl characters. Chun-Li, Nina from Tekken, and I would redesign their costumes. And when I was at school, that caught a lot of attention, and I started to design clothes for the girls in the class. And it was even in that moment from like the age of like 12, I started to see the beauty in like how designing something for someone could make them feel. And that I found very interesting from a young age. And where I grew up, no one was telling you about being a fashion designer. You grew up, you got a job, and you bought a house. That was the ambition. But my mum, weirdly enough, was like, you can do this. Like, you'd be really good at it. And I was like, yeah, maybe. Neither of us had a clue of how that worked. But eventually I went to study, and then I graduated, worked for free for a couple years here and there interning, realized I could not afford my rent by doing that, so I worked in like luxury retail. But whilst I was doing that, luxury retail was weirdly enough the biggest education. In the stores I was working in, Miu Miu, Chrome Hearts, I saw what people wanted, how the clothes would make them feel. And my clients became almost like I would just absorb all of their, won't wear this, love this makes me feel good. So I actually learned just as much at working in retail as I did at university, even maybe more so in some aspects. And so what I then started doing, believing I could do this, I started to like sew at night, do my day job, and just make clothes. So I launched my own little project, Wesley Harriott, which is my middle and last name. And I started making clothes under that to just kind of get my expression out there. That led to me winning a competition with ASOS. It was like the Fashion Discovery Prize, and I went in and pitched to all these scary editors, and somehow won. I'm basically running through my life. So this is like a long period of time. And then I used that investment because it came with like a prize fund. So up until then I was doing it for my salary, then I got this prize fund, and then I used that straight back into my work. And I got to does anyone know V-Files? It's like a New York collective that kind of support designers at the best. I applied for that many times to no success, but this one year I did get in, and that pretty much changed my life. That visibility, that opportunity, forever grateful to them. And then some celebrities came, and then some stockists came. And then I got a job at Vetements, which some would say, like, I was doing my own thing. Why would you go and do that? But at that time, that was my brand. I was obsessed with it. Emails in my inbox of the rejections every time I applied. And then I got a job there. So I was there for a year. And then I left and started service, got hired to start service. So that's a very short form window into kind of my trajectory.
Yeah, and I guess like off the back of that, the question I have is really around, I guess, your reasons for starting service, and sort of was it something that was very like a desire in yourself, or was it something that you, through the experience that you had, you identified that something, maybe there was a kind of gap or something that was missing in terms of the kinds of fashion collections, etc., garments that were being kind of, I guess like images that were being kind of produced?
Yeah, so speaking conceptually to service, the reason why it's even called service is going back a little bit to when I talk about like the female characters, and I've always been obsessed with the female image and how to empower it rather than sexualize it. That's where I think the relationship between the characters came, because they were always so empowered and tough and cool. And I think me as a designer, I feel really passionate about the art of protecting and being of service. So the name literally comes from the idea of being of service to the female form. And that's kind of what I want. Service and beyond, I want my trajectory to always be rooted in being at service to my client, to the woman, to whoever consumes my designs. And I think as a man in fashion, I'm really conscious that I think a lot of the time in fashion, when we say powerful, we actually mean sexy. And I really wanted to question that and be like, how can I design clothing that there is functionality that gives her choice over what she exposes? So a lot of the garments you can change or alter, close, expose. I was really interested in a brand that actually gave some agency back to the wearer. So that was kind of the initial intentions with service.
Because there's a number of terms that seem to sort of it's be incredibly important to service, and I mean I've just wrote down a few of them. So like movement, ritual, choice, but I guess like this question of like protection as well, and sort of power, or I guess could you sort of talk a little bit more about those and sort of how they manifest then in garments themselves, but also sort of more broadly the brand itself and how the brand communicates, and sort of I mean I've got a later question around sort of like world building, and I guess it's like how do these terms or key principles, how do they sort of manifest in the collections and in the way that the brand sort of communicates and presents itself?
Yeah, for sure. I think I'm like a garment nerd, so like it's funny when I do like buying appointments, it takes so long to explain like every facet of one of our garments, because there are always little nuances and things you can do with them to kind of communicate this ethos of service. For example, it can be as little as with our trench coats, they have lots of little incisions in them, so you can belt the jacket like 6 different ways. Even that notion of someone taking the garment home and being like, I'm gonna wear it like this today, I'm gonna do it like this today. I love that sense that something that comes from us then truly becomes yours in the way you choose to experience it. There are little things like every jacket has a zip in the back of the neck, so if you have long hair you can style it through. there's pieces where you can change the silhouette with different functions. I think, and maybe you'll agree or you don't, a lot of functionality and utility gets given to menswear. And I'm like, women want pockets too. Like, it's as simple as that. I think it's really, for lack of a better word, it can be a little ignorant to assume that those sorts of functions and end uses can be reserved for a specific gender. So I think we approach it a lot in the garments. A lot of the sensibility of service comes into the garments, but then in the visual, if you look at any of our shows or our shoots, that woman looks tough and she looks, you don't mess with that lady. And that can be read as hot if you choose to, but I like to send the woman out in the street in a visual that's no one can mess with her, but she might let you. And I love that.
Yeah, I guess my next question is really about the kind of changing nature of fashion, I guess, like especially the fashion industry over the period that you've been kind of working. I guess like we've seen like the fashion industry of like fashion brands, etc., like becoming increase their sort of cultural and economic power as a kind of thing it seems to have expanded massively. I mean, it just like recently LVMH was kind of identified as the sort of most the kind of the biggest company in Europe. Novo Nordisk, the pharmaceutical company who produces Ozempic, they LVMH toppled them recently as the kind of most profitable or kind of the biggest company in Europe. And so, you know, like I guess like the kind of that kind of economic and cultural sort of power of fashion seems to have, or the way in which it's kind of seeped into so many other kinds of areas of cultural and economic kind of life, as certainly over the last 10 years, as we've seen that kind of intensify. So so I was kind of curious in terms of like how have you experienced that kind of that massive cultural and economic dominance or sort of power of kind of fashion?
That's a big question. So I guess as I'm 100 years old, fashion has changed a lot since I've been working in it. And I guess I can speak to the changes that I feel have kind of impacted my practice the most.
Yeah.
I think that, so if you think, and for you guys it may be a lot longer, but for me it doesn't feel so long. The first live streamed show, I believe, on the internet was the Alexander McQueen show in 2009. That was the first time you could watch a show on the internet. And since then, if we fast forward to today, the globalization of fashion, I grew up having to discover it, look for it, dig for it. I used to go and buy, do you remember there was a magazine, it was a Japanese magazine called Fruits and Tune. They were like street fashion magazines. I used to save up my money and go and buy them to like just discover. And now it's just so everywhere all the time, and I think that's impacted not only how much we're consuming of fashion visually, but also it's impacted, I guess, how we dictate our own style and wants from fashion. Everything's so global now, so we're kind of not discovering, we're more force-fed and trying to create niche and trying to create a narrative that feels special and individualistic in a space where there's so much all the time. That is the biggest shift for me. And that has definitely made me design differently. And question, who is this for? Why does anyone need this? So yeah.
Because I guess like one of the kind of second questions I have off the back of this is to do with, like, I guess like part of that is how fashion brands have sort of become like media platforms in a lot of ways. And so I guess, and obviously, you know, we're a fashion media and communication course. So I guess I was curious in terms of like how has that the importance of media and communication and producing content that is then going to circulate on platforms, or like how has that kind of affected your I guess like design process? So are you, when you're designing something, are you also thinking about like how it is going to circulate in the kind of world? I said, like, I remember this. I remember this video of a kind of behind the scenes of one of Virgil's shows or collections for LVMH, and there was a certain thing where they were trying sort of like they were doing something very early on in the process, and he said this kind of amazing, I mean, incredibly like profound or whatever statement. And he said it very casually. He was like, he was looking at a kind of garment or producing something, and he realized that the way in which we consume clothes now is from a certain distance, which is principally the kind of distance that a garment or whatever is shot, and then how we view it on our phones or whatever it is. So he's saying, like, the moment that he realized that, then his relationship to the details of garments changed significantly, and he would think much more graphically in terms of like, is that detail, is it going to like, is someone going to be able to see it, or even sort of identify it in some way, like at the distance that he was talking about? I mean, that, and I was just like, it seemed like really profound understanding of this kind of recognition of the shift, or the importance of like how a garment is kind of presented and where it's being presented. So I was kind of curious in terms of like with your kind of design process, like, how has this kind of the importance of communication and media, whatever, in the operation of a brand, has that changed your design process, even when you're actually working on the level of sort of like designing a garment and thinking about the pockets or thinking about some aspect of...
Yes and no. Maybe I'm a bit like anti it all, in the sense that the garment, when it comes to the garment itself, I think a lot still just about the end use. I think a lot about how it can be enjoyed in real life, how it can create the image in real life. I think where I maybe have learned and adapted a little bit. So if I post something like on Instagram, for example, I find the most traction I will get is when I do something that is behind the scenes, process based, or just a bit more lo-fi. I find that in a world where we are overwhelmed by glossy content, all of the beauty, all of the things, all of the choice, when there is a hint of reality shining through, I think people cling on to that. I think that there is a section of the internet or the world that is really looking for something to grab onto and that feels tangible. So I definitely try to make sure I have, as much as we have these amazing, gorgeous shows that we've done, I really like to try and bring people in on a more personal level, whereas I think, in the past that's a bit of a dirty word to like how it was made. Like you don't show how it was made, but I think there's so much beauty in grounding where everything's up here. Being a bit more grounded, I think, creates a nice tension between the gloss and the realisticness. So that's probably my biggest adaptation. Maybe I'm doing something that's kind of counter that, but I think it serves a better purpose, if that makes any sense.
I'd also just, this is me in teacher mode here, but take note of the presenting your kind of process. I know sometimes we always, Jen and myself, always like bang on, document everything, present your process, whatever. So, and sometimes we get a little bit of pushback. So take note.
So important.
I guess following on from that, and we've kind of touched on it a little bit, and especially when you were talking about the kind of these characters. Again, I guess like another thing that has kind of a term and has become increasingly kind of important is this kind of notion of like world building and brands as kind of world builders. And I was just obviously we're going to show the video shortly, but Demna's soft launch of the his new collection for Gucci with these kind of photo series of archetypes or characters and the kind of short film, which I say we're going to kind of show shortly. But I kind of wanted to ask about the role of world building in your kind of process and sort of how important that is, or how, I guess, like conscious of that term are you when you're sort of building something? I mean, when you talked about earlier your kind of history or whatever, this idea of sort of like creating characters or I think there's something super interesting in this idea of like characters and how that plays a part.
Yeah, no, for sure. World building in any creative outlet, I think, is really important because that's what brings people in. For me, everything is kind of a fantasy based on reality. I find so much beauty in, the bus show, for example, that was literally inspired by, I take the bus everywhere, and I sketch on the bus, and I look at people and they think I'm crazy because I'm like, but I think, there's something really beautiful in creating a world that people can kind of see themselves in. So with the collections, particularly this one that's on the screen, every look is inspired by something that I can see. And I think when you create a mirror, like a fantasy mirror, that people can then look in and see themselves, that creates a unspoken relationship between you and the consumer or the person you're showing your work to, because you're inviting them in. You're saying like, come on in, like this can be for you. And with service, we wanted to intercept different women at different stages of their life, age, size. So creating a world for them that's based on a world that they already live in felt quite cool and interesting to me.
Yeah, I mean, I was struck seeing the video, and just how it just reminded me of like points where you are in some like whatever situation, like you're on the bus or whatever, and you just see someone walk by you, and you like instantly kind of start to imagine like them as this character and like what their lives would be like,
where
or
they
whatever.
going, who are they.
It's kind of I mean, I guess like do you again, because I think like this kind of question of like world building has become increasingly important and has become a kind of dominant strategy or kind of approach for both for kind of fashion brands, but I mean more broadly kind of creative outputs. I mean, think like K-pop groups as an example of kind of like masters of kind of world building various ways. I was wondering if there's any sort of have you come across, or have you sort of aware or conscious of the kind of risks or the drawbacks or the issues with world building? Like, are there any kind of things that, I mean, say for instance, like when you're building a collection, like, are you ever kind of conscious of it's like getting too much into the kind of world building and less about the sort of garments themselves? I was just thinking of like Demna's often criticized for like his class as this great like world builder, but sometimes sort of criticized for the kind of gimmickry and sort of not the focus on the actual kind of clothes themselves. So I was kind of curious, like, are there any sort of like drawbacks to this increasing importance of kind of world building as part of it?
I think the clothing will always come first, especially in my practice, because I think at the end of the day I have a duty of care to produce something that's worth that price tag and worth that that commitment to purchase. I guess the drawbacks I feel is any sense of like alienation. I don't like, of course, like there are people that will be like, that's not for me, and that's okay if you feel that way. Let's have that conversation. But I obviously, on a personal level, like to try and bring as many people into the world as possible. So I definitely find challenge in making sure there's enough for as many people as possible to grab onto. But I don't see necessarily drawbacks in world building, because I think when I was growing up, I grew up in a time of fashion where there was so much subculture. And it's interesting, in the previous conversation that was being had, there was that talk of like BTS and the fandom there, and Blackpink and the fandom there. I almost feel like sometimes that subcultural attitude towards clothing has moved over to music. And whereas I want to be inclusive in my approach to fashion, I do think we are all, and this is going to sound very emotionally driven, but we're all looking for somewhere to go. And how many people go there is down to them. But I think that there is something really beautiful in creating a space in which people feel that they can be understood in. So I don't see drawbacks in that.
Again, like, just circling back to this kind of question of characters, I guess, like, do you have in, like, either for the collection of the brand as a whole, maybe, or in individual collections, do you have a very precise type of character that you are constructing, or that you have in mind, that you then construct collections or garments for? Like, like, and if so, maybe could you like talk about a little bit about that?
Yeah, I think dependent on the theme of the collection, that can kind of change a little bit. But she's consistent. She's always strong. I think my image is always a strong one. But when we're developing the collections, the characters kind of come out and it's like, it can be frustrating for everyone around in the studio, but I'll be like, where is she going? What's she doing in that? Like, what's her intention? I think when I'm developing a garment or an outfit, constantly asking, where does she go in this? Who does she wish to be in this? Is she going to work? Is she going on a date? Is she storming out of somewhere? Like, there has to be a reason for this outfit to kind of exist. So the character building kind of comes from what we want the garment to mean in when it enters the world. But there's always a consistency, I think, in what the service woman represents. There was a really cool instance, actually. We had a sample sale a couple years ago or a year ago, and I saw this thing happen that I was really proud of. A bunch of people came, which was great. But there was different kinds of women coming for different kinds of products. Right. So like, we had a certain girl buying like the hoodies, the sweatpants, those more comfy items. And then we had a very specific kind of woman who was coming to buy like the tailoring. And then you kind of saw those characters you're trying to like communicate to actually coming for those things. And it was in that moment I was like, oh, okay, this is cool. Because I got to kind of like witness it. So yeah, the characters always come out through the intention of the garment.
I'm reminded of, I hope you won't mind, Alex at a workshop that we did a few years ago, last year maybe, where she we were talking about world building, and she introduced this, I guess, like a method that fiction writers use, or typically kind of use, where when they're developing a character, I think the thing was sort of like, can you identify, I mean, say, like, I'll just say 100, but like 100 habits that this character will have in their life, that do in their life. And if you can sort of do that, if you can imagine someone so much to that level of detail, then maybe that character is worth including in the story.
That's
and,
really
cool. So I think maybe there's a kind of parallel there. I guess, like, I mean, I guess with this kind of, when you were talking about this kind of collection of characters that you maybe experienced in the sample sale, I guess, like, is that something that then, when it comes to, I'm just seeing here, the kind of a runway show or something like that, I mean, like, do you see that as then an opportunity to present not just the collection of clothes, but almost like a collection of characters that kind of play out.
Yeah.
I mean, it just seems like the shows themselves, and most recently you had an event at Machine A where you kind of constructed this kind of like an office kind of
dystopian call center.
Yeah, that was it. Sorry. Yeah, I mean, I think it seems that you're very, very in those instances you're really like building some kind of world.
Mm-hmm.
So as maybe like can you sort of talk a little bit about the runway shows or these kinds of installations, like what's the process with that?
Yeah, so with the runway shows, which are like prepping a show, and some people hate it, I love it. It's my favorite. Like, you don't really sleep. There's tons of work to do, but it's just so much fun because you kind of see the story like coming to life slowly. And with I've worked with some incredible casting directors, Roxanne Dia, Madeline Osterley, and they both really understood how important to me that the casting has to look like the world I'm living in. So some of the people in the shows, you'll see them in all the shows, or some of them are my friends. Like my best friend walks every show, and her mum, that's her mum there, walking the show. So it's really important to me that not only do we like create the image with some of the most incredible models, but we also inject some people that actually mean something to me. So it really is real. So that's really important. And I guess in that, with the sets and the spaces we choose, like this is at the top of the BT Tower. We did the show before this was on the buses, and then I was like, so right, we've gone to work on the ground, let's be in the sky. So it's kind of like that high-low, like everything has a reason, but yeah, I feel like I'm talking a lot.
When you said we'll have a conversation,
yes,
it was partly they'll be bored of me speaking. So maybe the kind of last question I have really is to come back to the kind of themes of the summit. We've kind of repeatedly told about this kind of like crisis in luxury fashion, and I guess like what for you does kind of luxury mean, and maybe also sort of like, do you see the work that you're doing as luxury? Because I guess the other thing with this is often when we are told like certainly like luxury fashion, that's immediately assumed that that's a good, like luxury fashion is the highest thing that everyone kind of is aspiring to in some form. But I wonder with service do you even see service as a kind of luxury brand in that sense? So it's kind of two parts. Like, do you see service as a luxury brand? And then also the second part, like what does then luxury sort of mean for you? And like in 2025?
Okay, so I think I'm really realistic in the sense that the clothing is expensive. And some clothing is really expensive. I think there's a lot of luxury in the craftsmanship that goes into the clothing. I think today, the definition of a luxury brand, I think, gets kind of reserved a lot for those really big houses.
I was just saying, this is a side. I know in the Height and Abiety report that Jen and myself was referring to, I mean, I think it's funny. In that, it kind of griped me a little bit because they had the term that said like true luxury, and they referring to Gucci, Hermes, LVMH. Yes. And I was like, that's a really weird. Like I sort of was like, what? Like yeah. But anyway, I was like,
But this is the thing. I think luxury means different things to different people. Do I think that we create products with luxury sensibility in the way we make them and conceive them? Yes, I do. I feel like that label luxury brand is something that's kind of given to you in some context, if that makes sense. But no, there is definitely some luxury in the things we're making. What is luxury to me? I think freedom. I think the freedom to express ourselves, the freedom to travel, the freedom to, there's so much freedom that I don't take for granted. And I think we're actually living in a time where certain freedoms can be questioned. So even more so, the freedom to exist in my own self and do the things I want to do, that's something I don't take for granted at all. So maybe I should have had an answer where my biggest luxury was associated with clothing. But I guess I make clothing in essence to create a sense of freedom for the women that wear it. So freedom's really important to me.
That's great. I mean, I think it's like super interesting that both speakers, when we were sort of talking about luxury, like Flora referred to it in terms of like agency, and you referred to in terms of freedom. There's something very sort of interesting about that sort of
One. Oh no.
No.
No, I was gonna say I think it's really funny. Like obviously, after the pandemic as well, I think that there was a shift in our priorities. Like even me myself, I'm in the business of making clothing, and my God, I love clothing and have far too much of it. But the things that I really like, going somewhere, traveling somewhere, investing time with my friends. It's funny, I think a lot of our mindsets have shifted into time. That's become really important to us. So I don't know what that means for my work, but yeah, I think that that's an important.
But I guess I was thinking like you can, I mean, I was thinking that like the idea of like a garment or wearing something as part of some incredibly meaningful or memorable moment is like, that is really important, right? And that's like part of that construction of that memory or that experience, etc. So like it may not be necessarily the garment itself that is the luxury thing. It's the fact that it kind of facilitates or is part of something much greater, right? Which I think maybe is a much healthier way to understand fashion more broadly. Maybe.
No, absolutely. I think one of my favorite things in the world is when someone has come to me and been like, I felt spectacular in this moment in my life wearing this thing. It's funny when I have like celebrities wear stuff, that's incredible and we love those moments, but it's when someone in their real life has like an experience in something you created, that's really beautiful. And I also really want people to hold on to like some of these garments for as long as possible. I think wardrobe sustainability is incredibly important, so I always make clothing with the intention of someone pulling that tailored blazer out 10 years down the line and being like, I still love this thing. So
Great. Cool. Thank you very much.
No, thank you. Thank you guys.
Does anyone have, we've got a few, well, what is the time? Oh, okay, we've got a few minutes. Does anyone have any questions for Ricky? You were nodding, no. Very firmly, no. Okay, so there's a no there. Okay, any takers? No. Yeah. Oh, okay. We'll go Charlie at the back, and then. So.
Oh, okay. Yes, the bus show. I literally travel on the bus every day, and that's where I do a lot of my research. And I'm kind of obsessed with people and just seeing how they navigate. And I guess I make up little stories about who they are, where they're going. So I kind of wanted to kind of just create that experience for the show. Like my experience can then be a shared experience. Also, something kind of jokes about sitting a bunch of editors on a London double-decker bus. Like, I found that, like, you know.
I was trying to, when I was seeing the video, I was, like, looking at how people were, like, trying to, like, film it in some way. And it was like, their bodies were, like,
And it
Distorted in incredible ways.
exactly, and it became really real because how many times have we been like this on the train with our phones? Like the actual like show itself kind of became like commuting to work because I don't think anyone was comfortable. But yeah, I just kind of wanted to again take a reality and create a fantasy from it, and I think this is probably one of the things I'm proudest of. Yeah. Yeah, we had 4 buses. All the guests sat inside, and you've not lived until you've like coerced 30 models into taking double-decker stairs in like ridiculous hills. They were incredible. But yeah, no, it was an incredible experience.
Oh, and first of all, I love your design. That was amazing.
Thank you so much.
And I have a question, like it's a little bit personal, but I want to know like how you get like inspiration for like each like runway show or like your like a collection.
Mhm.
Do you get it maybe like from Instagram or like TikTok? Will you like scrolling like Instagram or TikTok like getting some like inspiration or some like just like click idea of how you're gonna do for your next show or something like that?
So the inspiration for like collections and shows, that can kind of start with just kind of something that's on my mind. I think the internet is kind of my escapism place. Like TikTok is my like before bed treat. So
Isn't that the opposite of what they
yeah,
advise you?
no,
That's
it's terrible.
Don't go on TikTok before you.
Yeah. I give myself timers and I'm like, that's enough.
Brian.
But no, I guess with the shows and the collections, it's more of something that's like on my mind or kind of something I want to share with people. Like the collection we did in the BT Tower, I was thinking a lot about our overconsumption of communication, hence the venue. So everything kind of starts with just where I'm at, and I kind of hold on a lot to my female friends, and I collaborate a lot with the females I work with and kind of, how do you feel? What do you want to see? I take a lot of, as a man, I don't think it's my sole job to tell the story of women. So I rely a lot on the women in my life to kind of steer me in the right direction for giving a story to women. I hope that answered the question.
Okay. So my question is, with social media, as you've mentioned, constantly feeding us with different fashion content, how do you manage to stay creative and innovative? And do you ever have creative blocks? If so, how do you deal with them?
Yes, I have creative blocks all the time. There are some days where I do not have it.
Some days that you don't have creative blocks.
I know. I know. Occasionally, I can come up with something.
Those days are really like, okay, I've got to get the collection done today.
Literally, today's the day. No, some days I just don't feel like I have it creatively. And my best friend, we have this like thing we say where we're like, we'll try again tomorrow. So I think all of us as creatives, I think it's really important to give yourself the agency, that word again, the agency to have a bad day. I think we put a lot of pressure on ourselves to have the answers all the time. In terms of being able, like social media and stuff like that, I think I try to consume social media as a fan. I love fashion outside of I think who I am in fashion and who I am as a fan of fashion are very different. So I try to keep social media as a part of my own personal fandom, because I think if I use social media as a mirror into what I should be doing or could be doing, that's overwhelming and crippling, and we should never be using the internet as a mirror into what we could be. So I try to really separate, I think, the facets of what I'm using things for. Did that answer the question? Cool.
Great. There's like a floodgate of questions now. I was just wrapped through.
Oh, I love your skirt.
Thank you.
Good choice.
Thank you.
That was the question.
Yeah, and we're done.
So when you're creating your brand, how do you stay true to yourself and your vision and what you want the brand to be when like there's kind of an influx of these micro trends? Do you think like your interest in people and women and everything, does that kind of lend to that?
Yes. Yeah, for sure. I think my interest in like the world around me kind of, I don't really like trends. It's funny, like you come up in trend pages sometimes, like your work does it. I'm like, I've been doing that for years. And that's because I think where I'm so rooted in the world around me, it kind of negates the need to try and follow what I think could be next. And I'm always interested for sure. Like I'm interested when I start to see like something starting to creep. Like I remember when I started to see like flip-flops on people, and I was like, oh, that's coming back. And then it's kind of blew up again. Could we have developed a flip-flop? Sure. Do I want to? No. Like it's not serving, I think, the narrative of the world I want to create if I start trying to lean into what I think is hot right now. Yeah, I think being consistent is really key in all of our practices, because in the end, people will catch up to you. Yeah. And if they don't, it wasn't for them. So that's okay.
Great. Well, I think we're going to take a break now. So we'll be back just after 4 o'clock for the screening of the new Gucci short film called The Tiger. Yeah, and then we have the last two speakers, Adam from International Magic and Charlie, who is in the corner. So yeah, so come back just after 4 for the screening, and then yeah, into more yapping. Thank you.
Thank you guys.
Thanks, Ricky.
Thank you.